Hi, it's Dr. Quartell again. I'm happy to have you there. Last time we talked about why probiotics aren't always the answer and how what you eat every day really shapes your entire gut ecosystem. Not just what you're putting in one pill here, but the total consumption, everything you're eating. Today, I want to dig into something that almost sounds a little too strange to be true, but the science on it is pretty solid. It's this. It's that your gut microbiome can literally change your weight, even if you don't change what you're eating, right? So one question I hear all the time and from patients or constantly is, how does my gut actually affect my weight? How does my gut affect my metabolism? How does my microbiome? And this is usually preceded or postceded with, what probiotics should I be taking? I just want to let you know the full picture isn't completely clear yet. But there are some things that we do know, and what we know is really nothing short of fascinating. And one thing that we know is specifically from the microbiome transfer experiments. I'm going to paint a picture with some wild research. It's a little disgusting. You can, but nonetheless, scientists can take the microbiome from one individual and transport it into another. These are called fecal microbiota transplants. It's exactly what it sounds like. You take the poop from one person, you slurry it up, and you push it up into somebody else. It's typically used as a last resort for severe gut infections like C. diff and other, gut problems. But and it's probably not the best conversation to have at dinner, like, oh, guess what I'm doing later as you're eating some chocolate pudding. But here's the crazy part. When this is done in both animals and humans, and animals, the experimental data is wide, and humans is as well. The animal or the human, the mouse, the human receiving the transplant oftentimes will gain or lose weight without changing their diet or exercise at all. Same number of calories, same activity level, an entirely different microbiome, then boom, the scales shift, the scales change without any other changes at all. This alone tells us something massive about how much control these microorganisms have. The things that live in our intestine have huge control over what's happening. This then brings us to the next concept, the fat-loving bacteria. So if we zoom in on what happens when someone eats a diet that's high in fat, ultra-processed foods, a very heavy fat processed diet, when undigested fat reaches your colon, if you overeat anything, you'll reach your colon and digest it. It will then feed specific type of bacteria that absolutely love fat. These bacteria use a process called beta oxidation to metabolize that fat, and that process is very highly inflammatory. But here's where it gets interesting and maybe even a little bit creepy. You might not know. These fat metabolizing bacteria just don't hang out in your gut. They can actually influence your fat tissue itself. They travel around in the body, they go into the fat tissue, and they can stimulate the growth of new fat cells. So kind of like, well, why would they do that? Why would they leave the intestine? Because that's where so much fat is. Why would they go to the fat cells? Because they're building a food supply. Just like the farmer will plant crops to feed the family, bacteria are essentially pushing your body to grow more fat so they have a continuous source of fuel. And then as these bacteria live and colonize in the fat, they create inflammatory chemicals. And this is why we see fat as an inflammatory organ. And this creates a really vicious cycle. The more ultra-processed food, the more high-fat food, the more inflammatory bacteria you're developing, then this leads to more fat storage, which leads to more difficulty losing weight, and it just spirals and spirals. And this is where you can get completely stuck. And where you get stuck is typically in the silver bullet trap. Like, oh, what's the one thing? What's the one probiotic I can eat? What's the one supplement? Right? Because oftentimes we're looking for a magic solution, a pill, a cleanse, a probiotic, a detox tea, something, anything. We're just hoping we can flip a switch that just makes it all go away. And it's unfortunately just not that simple. Because there's a basic fundamental underlying truth that people just sometimes don't want to hear, but you really need to understand. And this truth is that your weight, your metabolism, your inflammation, even your cravings, these are outputs. These are results. These are not body failures. These are not your attempt and then failing. This is your body output. Your body is specifically responding to the inputs you're giving it every single day. You put a program in a computer, an app, and an output comes out, right? And this is the core body user manual philosophy that I wrote, earlier. You're not broken, but the system is working exactly as it's designed to work. It's just responding to signals that are pushing it in the wrong direction. So how do we make this work? What do we do to actually make this happen in a better way? In the Quartell protocol, we typically take a completely different approach. We ask, well, what type of environment are you creating in your body when you're eating and living in your daily life choices? And then based on that environment, what organisms are you feeding? What bacteria, fungus, protozoas, virus? And then what is that signal that you're sending to your body every single day? Because your body, your biology always responds to an input. Once you fix the inputs, whole food, fiber diversity, way less ultra processed foods, leading to stable blood sugar, better nervous system regulation, the system starts working with you instead of against you. What I mean by with you is building the type of body and health that you're looking for. And suddenly weight loss isn't a brutal battle of willpower where you're constantly like white knuckling it through hunger cravings. I can't, right? So it's because your body is asking you to do something, but when you change the input, the output is different. And then this becomes a natural byproduct of a body that's finally running in the way it was designed to run. You're using the body the way it was built for. Your gut bugs start producing anti-inflammatory compounds. Your hormones stabilize. Your cravings shift. Your energy comes back. And sustainable fat loss becomes possible without feeling like you're always starving. And that's the real solution. When you make it easy, when you make it simple, when you treat the body the way the body was built for. This is not a hack. It's not a supplement. There's no shortcut. It's just understanding the system and working with it instead of working against it. And this is a slow process. It takes time. But if you're ready to take your next steps, ready to go to the next level, this is what I'd like you to try this week. It's simple. It's easy as far as there aren't a lot of moving parts, but it takes a little bit of work to do. Add more plant diversity to your plate. Aim for 30 different plants this week. Vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, seeds, herbs, even like some rosemary, some thyme, or different colored peppers, different colored carrots. These are all, mix it up, have fun with it. Change the nature of your food by increasing the more you're eating. Feed the good bugs, give them what they need to thrive, and see what happens. If it works, great. If not, you just eat some different vegetables and fruits. Thanks for listening. I'll catch up with you next time. And please remember, check us out on social media. And always feel free, reach out with any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. You can also send us an email at